Welcome to everyone in the No Pants Nation. I'm Susan Rook D'Ettorre here on behalf of the No Pants Nation and the newly official No Pants Show, where every week we talk to real live human beings who can help you on your path towards the freedom and flexibility of a freelancer's lifestyle. So, one of the people, the very first guest on our show, is a woman that also has a background in television news. She and I connected in the No Pants Project immediately, and she is absolutely fabulous. Deb Law is joining us. Welcome, Deb. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm thrilled that the debut show is you, because you have been profoundly helpful, generous with your time. I mean, just amazing. And your skill set is fabulous. What I've seen in the open community, people join the open community because so many of them want to turn their love of writing into a successful business. That's a theme. So the first step has to be what business, and then writing what? That means figuring out your niche. Deb, you're an expert at doing that. So kind of walk us through that, if you would.
Okay, great. So yes, like a lot of people in this group, I mean, one of my very first jobs was in television news, and my intention was to ultimately become a segment producer and or writer for the show. And that didn't work out, but the thing is, the love for writing actually never left me. So when I discovered the intersection between some of my skills in terms of I'd had a background in sales. I discovered how words can be used to sell stuff, and it was so powerful. It was something that I wanted. And so I spent some time learning how to write conversion copy, basically words that sell. Now, that's not the only way that people can get involved with writing. There's website content that needs to be written. There's content that needs to be written. There's social media posts. There's writing. And actually, as technology has evolved, the need to have writers is even more, is greater than it ever has been, I think. And so when I joined the No Pants Project, which was almost a year ago, it was a little over a year ago, last year.
I think you joined right before I did, because you and
I was in on the very, I joined on the very first day.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
wow.
Very first day. Yes. So, yeah, I had known Michael Shreve from another group, and he doesn't know this, but I was like a total stalker of his in that other group. He's no longer in that group, but I swear to you not, I read every single thing he wrote for like 3, 4, 5 times easily. And because he's so inspirational in how he can show people how to do things. So when I came to the program, I had no focus. And this was really one of the things that was holding me back. I was sort of like I will write for food, basically. And over a course of 5 years, in a way that was good, in that I have a lot of experience writing for a lot of different niches. But what made it bad was that as a result of writing for, I mean, I tried to count the different number of niches I've written for, and I stopped counting at about 32. And the problem when you do this is you're not a specialist. So you're seen as a commodity. And think about it. I'm also currently running Facebook ads for clients that I do email marketing for. And so if you think about it, the difference between being able to say, you know, I write email and Facebook versus when you're talking to someone in a specific type of industry, when I can say, you know, I just finished up a campaign and it was for an insurance agent who was able to write $14,400 in premium over the course of 1 month directly from this campaign. In addition to that, we have, you know, 237 people we put on an email list for slightly over $1 each. That gets things clicking, that gets things moving. And so the reason you want to specialize is, number one, when you are seen as a specialist, you can be paid more. It's kind of like the difference between if you had some sort of disease, like say I don't know, cancer, for instance, are you going to go see the family physician, or do you want someone who's a specialist like that? Do you want to go see the oncologist? If you have, need brain surgery, do you want to go see the OD, or do you want to go see someone who is a neurosurgeon? So by specializing, what you're able to do is be seen as someone who's not just a commodity, but be seen as an expert in that particular type of industry, that particular type of niche.
I think that business about whether or not you're a commodity, a lot of people in the No Pants Open community are talking about they're already writing and they're getting paid very little money. I was reading what one person was posting, and he said, I feel like I'm at my top client's beck and call, and they're treating me like they would an employee, the worst kind of employee, but without health insurance, time off. I mean, you've got all of the disadvantages of being a freelancer and none of the advantages of being an employee. So that's just a setup that can't last. So how do you, especially in the early days, switch yourself when you're not exactly sure what your niche should be, what you're good at? And let's say you're interested in everything: diet, food, exercise, movies, pop culture, pets, business. How do you begin to narrow down that swirl? I love that you had 35 niches.
Yeah, a lot of different stuff. Well, so when it comes to writing, and I think this is going to apply to other creative freelance things as well, like providing social media marketing services or providing even websites, designing logos. One of the things that happens when you don't care about what you're writing about, or you have no interest in it, is it shows up in your work. And this is especially true with writing, because when you're writing about something that you're not interested in, it's like, and you just made me think, because I was recently getting a quote for my homeowner's insurance, and they're like, what kind of roof do you have? I'm like, it's brown. I don't know. And so it does a couple of things. It says that, if I were to try to write for a roofer, obviously I have no interest in that. So number one, I'm not going to speak the language of the prospect for the roofer. Number two, my lack of interest is going to show through. Now, that's not to say helping roofers is not a good niche. It just happens to be not a good one for me.
So I have a confession early on.
Yes.
The No Pants Project, and this is how we met. I'm like, so what is my niche? What do I want to do? How do I maximize my particular skills and talent, which admittedly are very narrowly focused, finely tuned, but very narrowly focused. And so I was kind of, looking at various things, and I thought, wow, I'm going to go be a blog post writer. So I signed up on one of the sites, and they said, send us a writing sample. And you click on this thing, and they give you the thing to write about. I, one, didn't know that you could change the topic.
Oh.
Two, coming from a news background, a television news background, I thought to myself, I'm sure they're timing this. They also want to see how fast I can write. So I wrote something like a 500
oh, that's
word,
funny.
a 500 word blog post on parenting tips to teach your children about sustainable energy. I'm not a parent. I don't have children. I'm not an expert. I care about sustainable energy, but it's not a huge passion of mine. I don't know. I just knocked one out in 10 minutes, and I sent it off, and I'm like, wow, this is very stressful. This is much more stressful than the presidential debate. This is terrible. And so I get shortly after that, I get this response back: please never use this email again. We don't want you. Your writing is terrible and not up to our standards.
Oh,
but you pay like $5 bucks per blog post. How can I not be up to your standards?
Right. Right. And
Disclosure.
so we don't, in the No Pants Nation, we do not recommend writing $5 blog posts. And this is where learning how to market your services comes into place. And the good news is there's lots of different ways you can approach it. I was on a webinar this morning, and I heard someone say something that like really resonated with me. What the quote was is that when there's good marketing, sales become superfluous. And that was just like, so it's like, yeah, you know, when you are putting yourself out there in a way that your market wants to be approached, things become totally different. So in terms of how you can get involved in what it is you want to do, first of all, there's choosing your niche. And there's a couple of different things I would look at when it comes to choosing your niche. For instance, is it a market that's growing? So if you're looking at a market that's on the, you know, on its last leg, it's going to be hard for you to grow in that niche. It's going to be difficult for you to expand and specialize. So that's one question I would have if I was considering different niches to look at. Another one is, are people willing to pay professional rates? And are they actively looking for the content or whatever services that I provide? And it's kind of like, it's difficult to convince somebody that they want to do something that they're not already doing when there's so many people, for instance, like email. If someone doesn't already have an email list, they might be a little bit interested in it. But for me to come in and say, you know, I want you to pay me $200 in email, and they have no list, they have no track history, they might have heard about it, it's going to be a bigger challenge. So what types of services are they already using? And another thing I found is, how easily can you locate your target market? And if they're not easily locatable, that's going to be a challenge for narrowing it down. If I was interested in many different things, one of the ways that I would approach it is I would pick a handful. Let's say I'm interested in working with financial advisors. I want to work with coaches. I want to work with course creators. And I want to work with people who are into low carb dieting, for the sake of argument. One of the best ways to approach this is to go out to the market and see how the market responds to me and my message. Because let's say I have an interest.
Approach all 4 or 5 different things?
Yeah.
Do you recommend a particular number, like, you know, choose your top 3 and go to those, or 3 to 5?
There is a management issue if you're going too large. The way that I would make my decision is, I'd like to have, let's say I can have 5 conversations with prospects in each of those niches. And the more prospects you can talk to, the better, but I'd say no less than 5. That I can use to help me narrow down where I might want to focus my energy and my efforts. Because even though people are different within the niche, they have a lot of common problems. And the question is, are these problems that I'm able to solve? They have a lot of similar experiences. And another thing with talking to another one, and this is something I learned early on when I was first doing the No Pants Project, is I thought I had the perfect niche. It's kind of funny because I recently found like the whole marketing plan I'd written, and it was like way overboard in terms of specificity, I'll say that. And what I found
that's
is
your news background. That's totally your news background.
Yeah. What I found though is once I started talking to people, I'm like, I don't even like these people. I mean, there were ones that were like, the ones I liked couldn't afford me. It was sort of funny because, you know, this is the No Pants Project, right? And one person I talked to, she was like, well, I can't actually afford to pay you, but, you know, I had a designer clothing shop and I recently closed it down, and I have some clothing that I could pay you with. It's designer clothes from Italy, and in a size that are larger than you think that I think I take. And it's like, no, this is no pants win. We don't do designer clothing. So
let
that's
me
another
just
thing.
pause for just a second and mention that to the people in the No Pants Open community. The absolute thing that Mike and all of the coaches in the No Pants Project, and I also believe, is that your business life has to fit your life. That's the goal, so that you have the freedom and the flexibility of a freelancer. So many people who join the open community are saying, I want to get out of the corporate grind. I want to go to my kid's birthday party. I want to have retirement savings and be able to take a vacation and even have health insurance. I want to be able to do all of these things. And so if you are getting paid in clothing,
Yeah.
that would be a no. You would post something like that in the No Pants Project community, and the other members of the community would say, Deb, you might do that on a vacation if you really want the clothing, but otherwise, no, you need to make some money.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Was the exhortations of don't do the shiny object syndrome, pin it down, narrow it down, focus, test the market, and then come back, refine your technique, go out, test the market again, continue refining until you find your niche? Was that helpful for you to hear, and then also get support in by other community members?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And, I think those of us who are writers are often very, very curious. And so I was talking to someone, and I discovered we had access to my boyfriend, and I discovered we had access to something that I would really like to have. It was another monthly newsletter / community. And I'm like, oh, we do? And before I could even say anything, he's like, you don't need any more information. You focus on what you have. So yes, it's in there, but to get to where you want to be, focusing is going to be the most important thing. It's so interesting in that it's not so much a matter of how well you do something as consistently showing up each and every single day. That's what's generating the results. You get on the phone with a client and you're like, that was just awful. And yet somehow just the activity and talking to people, somehow the activity seems to generate clients. And so rather than focusing on getting it perfect, sometimes done, it beats perfect. Most of the time, done beats perfect.
That's a perfect lead in to Ross's question. Have you ever negotiated performance-based percentage commissions, especially perhaps someone that can't afford you right away?
I have, and there are some considerations to keep in mind. Number one is there's a lot of people who would be willing to make this offer to you, will you sell my stuff and I'll pay you a percentage? The first question is, do they have a good offer? Because if they don't have a good offer, it doesn't matter how good the marketing is. I could hire the top A-list copywriter, and if it's not what the market wants, it's not going to be something that people buy. So that's the biggest consideration. Number one is how good is their offer? Number two, how are they going to take it to the market? And then there's also the trust factor. How do you ensure that you get paid? And so that's one thing I would be cautious about with working with someone that I didn't know or someone that I've never worked with before. What sort of assurances do I have that they're actually going to pay me what they're promising to? And one way you can find that out is see if you can talk to other freelancers that they've had this arrangement with, or see what access you can get to where the orders and the sales are recorded. So You can do very well with revenue shares or royalty type arrangements. The thing is, you want to be careful of, is this person offering it to you because they can't afford it?
Mm.
Or are they offering it to you as an incentive to help you do a better job? That's one consideration. And then making sure that whatever it is that you're working on is something that people are going to buy or something that people want.
You know, another thing that I've noticed is that people that have, business people that have a hard time talking about money are not a good fit for me, because at that point things get murky. And the minute that something as important as finances loses transparency, that's when people get hurt, feelings get, you know, someone is left with saying, oh, I've done so much and you didn't pay me, and I thought you were going to pay me this. And it doesn't necessarily have to be all nailed down in a 25 gazillion page legal document. But I can kind of get a vibe when I talk to someone bluntly about money, whether or not they come back with, wow, I really appreciate you bringing that up. Mm-hmm. This is my budget. Here's what I'd like to do. And then you start a conversation, but it's a real conversation rather than, I'd like to get paid. Okay, and I'll pay you.
Right.
I'd like to get paid what? Be paid what? And by when?
And also, are they going to keep their word? You know, this was a number of years ago. I agreed to do a large writing project for lower than I would have had I. So the agreement I had with the person was that if for X, they can own the rights, for Y, I own the rights and I could license that to other people. And what ended up happening was, when it came time to pay me my final payment, there was a thing in there that they were asking me to sign over all of the rights. And it was like, no, this is not what we agreed to. And it becomes an issue in that was an integrity issue. You know, I have a feeling that this person knew going in that even though they'd agreed that I was going to maintain the rights and I was planning to license it to other people, that they'd withhold the payment, and they were hopeful that I would give in.
How often does that happen? Where somebody
not very often
statement, but just starting out? Because there's a huge power imbalance when you're just starting out, especially if you want the employment, you want the testimonial.
Right.
You know, it's almost like kids that go into an internship. It's an unpaid internship, and the rationale is you work for free, but you will get a benefit and experience later on down the road. That may be fine if you're 20 and can afford to live at home with your parents and they're basically supporting you. It is not okay when you're 30, 40, 50, or 18 and no longer living at home with your parents. It's not okay. You need to be able to support yourself. But I think because of that power imbalance,
there's another piece to that too, is perception. So if you're willing to work for a very low rate for a person, or you're even worse, for free, then when you come back and we want to talk about money, that's a more difficult conversation. So for instance, let's say I've written a $50 blog post for somebody and I've been doing this for 2 or 3 months. And now I'm going to come back and say, you know, now I want to charge you $200. In their mind, my value hasn't changed. And I was previously willing to work for $50. So why should they pay me more at this time? And so, yes, there is a tendency for people who are brand new to try to undervalue themselves. And it's a pretty deep hole you can dig yourself into, because it's very difficult to change the perception that a person has of you as your rates increase. In fact, one of the first clients that I had on an ongoing basis, as I started getting better and as I started getting more results for my clients, my rates went up. And unfortunately, I eventually priced myself out of working with them And they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to pay that. And that's something that happens as well too, because you have to let yourself grow and flourish and reach higher levels. And sometimes that does include saying goodbye to clients you don't like if they can no longer afford your services.
We've got a great question, and this is definitely in your wheelhouse. I apologize if I mess up your name. Sai Sarab. It says, I am really interested in learning about some topics in technology and finance. Deb is an expert in that. Should I learn about them first before I pitch prospects in those niches, or can I directly get jobs and learn while doing them?
Depending upon what you're trying to offer, I think you don't have to be an expert. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I went to a networking event, and I was sort of shocked at, like, because I've been in the world of the people I talk to, they're online and they have more they're more marketing savvy. And your average business owner, your average even your average financial person, their marketing knowledge is probably way less than yours already, especially if you've been hanging out in places and groups where people talk a lot about marketing. So I wouldn't necessarily let holding up on the I wouldn't necessarily wait until you were an expert in the field. What you want to do though is before you start talking to people, it's good to have a sort of a general idea of what some of their problems are. And there's a few common problems that nearly everyone has. One of them is they need a cost-effective way to get more clients. So are there, for this particular niche, are there ways that you can think of that they would be able to, you could help them get more clients? So I'm going to say you don't need to be an expert, but I'd recommend before you start talking to people that you at least have a little bit of an idea about the types of challenges and the types of things that people in that niche need help with.
That is great advice. And then there was also, and you chimed in on this as well, in the No Pants Project community, someone was asking for advice, and I think it was like real estate and mortgage. He had landed a big client, wanted to do the best, and felt like he needed to become an expert on real estate and mortgage financing. And one of the things that I found particularly helpful in my niche, which is ghostwriting, is I just simply talk to the person. I write down what they say in their words, clean it up a little bit, edit it. It's exactly what a journalist does. And then I give it back to the person. And they think I'm brilliant. They're like, that's exactly what I wanted to say. And then here's the thing. Don't say, but you said it. I just wrote it down and dressed it up a little bit. I just put a frame around it and sent it back to you. That's why you liked it.
Yes, definitely rely on the clients. They're the experts. My expertise is utilizing market copywriting, utilizing ways to get people to get eyes on their content to be able to get more clients. But we each have our expertise, and I don't have to be an expert in both fields. So what the clients are looking for is they're looking for a result. You know, they want more clients, or they want more, if they're interested in growing their social media presence, they want more engagement with their posts. If they're interested in, you know, their website, you don't have to be an expert on bed and breakfast, for example, but what you do need to have is, you know, a sort of an idea of, for there to be an effective website for a bed and breakfast provider, what are the things that need to be included? So no, you don't need to be an expert, but it does help to know the challenges they face, the commonalities between people in that niche.
Sai said, thank you. Great response. And a final question, this similar to the one that we started off answering at the very beginning. But Josh Copeland wants to know, as a copywriter, is it better to be niche or general?
It goes both ways. The advantage of being niche is that you can position yourself as a specialist, and you're not doing new research each and every time. I mean, when you're writing, you know, in the past, I've written for like psychics, I've written for diabetes courses, I've written for attorneys, I've written for professional speakers, authors, and every time you're going into a niche, that increases, or a new niche, that increases the amount of research that you're doing to provide adequately for the client. Now, if I'm, you know, an A-list copywriter getting $30,000 to write a sales letter, I can afford to spend 10, 20, 30 hours researching. If I'm writing a sales letter for $1,500, $2,000, I'm getting into the return on investment. So, you know, is the time that I'm spending on researching it and researching a new industry each time going to be worth it? And so, as a general rule, it is best to specialize. Now, writers, one of the things that writers have, and one of the reasons I love the writing as I do, is because I love reading. And one of the things that writing the copy like I do lets me do is, when I'm spending time reading, I'm actually, you know, getting information that I can use when I'm writing for the clients. So yes, if you are interested in many different things, you don't necessarily have to limit the number of niches that you work in. However, just keep in mind that the learning curve, you know, learning to speak the prospect's language, because even though, you know, your prospects speak English and you understand all of the words, every single industry has their own language. They've got their own jargon in the way they refer to things. For instance, I did some work with broadband access, which is basically your high-speed internet chips type things. And one of their acronyms was POTS, P-O-T-S. What does it stand for? Plain old telephone system. Most of you probably don't have one anymore. I still happen to have one in case the power goes out.
Just in case. Yeah, it's a little
just in case, yes. But so every industry has their own language. And when you're writing copy for someone and you're not capturing the essence of the way they talk, they can tell it, and it starts to create doubt in the mind of their prospects. So I know that was a long answer to your question. What I would say is, initially focus on few niches. If you're curious like I am and you enjoy doing research and learning more things, add it slowly. Don't take on a new different niche with every client because of the amount of time that you would have to spend on the research phase of it.
If you approach your copywriting with the shiny object syndrome, you will not get paid, but you will be the smartest person in the unemployment line. You do not want that. We at the No Pants Nation do not want that for you. We want you to be healthy. We want you to have enough money. We want you to have the freedom and flexibility of being a freelancer. And it is all possible with people and coaches like Deb Law. Deb, thank you so much for being here. This is the very
you're welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Yay! This is the very beginning of the No Pants show. And if you like the show, put some comments right down in the comments thing. Send questions and stuff to Deb. We will get you answers and we will post them. As always, if you'd like us to feature someone that you know in a future interview, or if you yourself have insights and help that you'd like to offer the community of freelancers, please reach out to us. You can tweet me at No Pants Show. We can also share those messages as well. And then remember, if you'd like to join us live tomorrow get ready for the man who is billed as the mentor to the copywriters, the coach of the copywriters, the star of the Copywriter podcast, David Garfinkel. You will not want to miss this. He is just absolutely fabulous, and he will answer tons of your questions. So join us live tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and feel free to join us here inside of the free No Pants Open community, where more than 18,000 freelancers gather every day to build a business around their lives instead of building lives around a business. Simply search No Pants Open Community in Facebook to join. We would love to have you. And by the way, I am wearing my pajama bottoms from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I am here in the No Pants Show debut wearing no pants. It's good to be a freelancer. We will see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Bye.